In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Veni Sancte Spiritus, repletuorum corda fidelium, et tui amore in is ignem accende, emite Spiritum tuum et creabum tuum.
Et renovabis facem terrae.
Deus qui corda, oremus. Deus qui corda fidelium Sancte Spiritus illustratione doquisti. Da nobis Signore Spiritu recta sapere, ed eius semper consolatione gaudere, per Christum Dominum nostrum.
Amen.
Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tui mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Santa Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostre. Amen.
Co Iesus Sacratissimo,
Miserere nobis,
Co Maria Immaculatum,
ora pro nobis,
Sancte Iosef,
ora pro nobis,
Sancte Ioannes Baptiste,
ora pro nobis,
Sancte Pie Decime,
ora pro nobis.
Sancti.
Okay, we are going to look at the statement that Father Ruiz and I have worked on. Father's done the main part of the hard work. So it's in Spanish, English, and French. And it starts, confronted with the silence of the pastors, part 2. Because, was it last year or 2 years ago?
2 years. 2 years.
2 years ago we issued one. And then it said, confronted with the silence of the pastors, but not all of them, the shepherds, but not all of them. Now this time it says, confronted with the silence of the shepherds, with a rare exception. New statement of golden truths in these times of spiritual disorientation. Introduction. With this new statement, we intend to give a reminder and an update of our July 1st, 2023 statement. We maintain our intention to denounce the harmful absence of public teaching by shepherds who no longer wish to transmit the doctrine of the Catholic Church, either in whole or in part. This absence weakens what little remains of the Catholic Church today and no longer hinders the process of apostasy among Catholic people initiated by the Second Vatican Council. So here we go, point 1. The Catholic Church is a visible and indefectible society. According to the intentions and promises of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Catholic Church is a visible and indefectible society in her faith and in her essence. Because it is visible, the profession of its faith must be public. That's capital letters. The Catholic Church is not a secret society. So where in the gospel do we have that?
Yeah.
That Christ basically says, I'm not building a secret society, but go.
Go out and preach to all nations.
All nations, yes. Because it is indefectible, the profession of its faith must be integral. What's that mean, anybody? Integral.
Key.
More than that. If you have an apple tree, but you only have the fruits, that's not a full apple tree. You need the roots, the bark, the trunk, and the branches, and the leaves, and you need the whole thing to have an integral apple tree that's going to bear fruit every year, right? So the faith has to be integral as well. So nothing omitted, the whole faith. So is it a dogma of the faith? The kingship of Christ.
Yes.
That is a dogma of the faith, but that's been buried under the sand for many years. All right. So, Father, anything? It's quite clear.
This thing is clear. I speak about that the last starter month. We speak of this question too, but it's important to remember a little the same concept.
Yes. This uncorrupt and integral profession of the faith is necessary for the very existence of the Catholic Church. There will always be Catholics who profess the Catholic faith integrally and publicly, even if the strife of the times may reduce them to a small number. So, when in history was society, the Catholic faith, or even before Christ came, reduced to a small handful?
I think it was 7,000 who went with prophets.
Well, an Old Testament example would be Noah's Ark.
Oh, yeah,
There was
very
8 of
clear.
them.
Yeah, eight on board. That's it. 300 soldiers with Gideon, right? 300 Maccabees against 40,000 Syrians. David against Goliath and the Philistines. So God likes to work with small numbers. He's not democratic, is he? 2, the silence of the shepherds. The mercenary shepherds do not take care of the sheep because they are mercenaries. The first duty of the ecclesia docens, that is, that part of the church that is the function of teaching, is to remember the doctrine. The first right of the ecclesia discens, that is, the part of the church which is taught, is to be taught sound doctrine. So that's the classic distinction between the ecclesia docens, the teaching church, which is made up by who?
The
Anybody?
religious, the priests, the bishops, the cardinals, and the Pope.
Yeah, the Pope, bishops, and priests. That's the teaching church, and mainly the Pope and bishops. And then the taught church, the faithful, and the religious too. And according to the sentence of St. Paul the Apostle, this doctrine must not be taught only once, but constantly, in season and out of season. Preach the word, be instant, in season, out of season, reprove, entreat, rebuke, in all patience and doctrine. For times will come when men will not be able to endure sound doctrine. 2 Timothy 4. And then Our Lady of Good Success. And in this supreme need of the church, those who should have spoken in time will remain silent. Our Lady of Good Counsel. Our Lady in Quito, Ecuador. It is also true that the faith can be professed by acts, gestures, and attitudes. By practical acts, as long as they are upright, one can profess and defend the faith. If they are ambiguous or equivocal, they can destroy it. We are tired of seeing how the conciliar popes have multiplied ambiguous acts and gestures, as well as unequivocal ones that disorient and weaken the faith of the faithful. 3.3, the primacy of doctrine. In all the councils and teachings of the popes, they have always condemned the errors of their time. To teach sound doctrine and condemn the errors was always their first objective. All the acts of a Christian depend on the doctrine of the faith. Today, liberal Catholics will say that condemning current errors is neither pertinent nor prudent, because they prefer practical and immediate results, and also because they do not see truth as an absolute good, but relative. What's that mean? So what's an absolute good and what's that mean by relative? Anybody?
Up to interpretation.
Are absolute truths open to interpretation?
Relative.
Yeah, relative truths. Yeah. So all the dogmas of the faith are not relative; they're absolute, right? They can't be even. They can be discussed, but you can't deny or reject them.
Today they give preference to the peace and to not the truth. They sacrifice the truth for the peace or for the ecumenism, and that is not primacy of the truth. In other times, the church favorized first the teaching of the truths. And after he have problems, with the kings, with many countries, have problems because the church insists first in the doctrine. And after, in the diplomacy, the peace, and the rights of the church, and the rights, the civil society, there are rights. But the church prefer always the primacy of the truth. No sacrifice, never the truth. That is the history of the church. All the history is that. But after the Council Vatican II, today the church conciliar sacrifice the truths for the peace, for the ecumenism, for the some convenience, human conveniences, I would say.
Yeah, human conveniences.
That is, if it's more important the human conveniences, the truth is not something absolute. It's a well, but relative, and that's why they sacrifice the truth of the faith, the truth of the faith.
Yes. The pastors of the new conciliar and liberal church no longer understand the primacy of doctrine, nor are they interested in it. The doctrine of the faith, although this may displease the priests of the neo-SSPX, the Neo-Society Pius X, the doctrine of the faith is prior to and more important than the Holy Mass and the sacraments. The Holy Mass depends on faith and is something created, while the truth of faith is uncreated. It is eternal. It is the Word of God. If sound doctrine is not defended first, neither can the Holy Mass be defended. The Holy Mass is the means to reach the possession of the eternal truth through the beatific vision. Very important point there. The primacy of doctrine, right? And Archbishop Lefebvre, in numerous talks, speaks of the primacy of doctrine over the practical solutions. In the new SSPX today, a simplistic conception of one's so-called duty of state is taught and promoted, which consists only of mass attendance, Christian piety, and practical and material duties. And they do not want to understand that the first of all duties of state is the defense of
the faith,
especially when it is in danger in an age of apostasy. So, if there's any time bishops and priests need to be preaching the faith, it's now. The faithful also have the right and duty to know the errors of our time in order to be able to persevere and defend the doctrine of the faith. Point 4. So this is all basics, right? Point 4. The necessity of Christian combat. Catholics in this world are all members of the church militant. This is not a poetic expression, but is a reality. We are not part of the church triumphant, which is in heaven, nor of the church suffering, which is in purgatory. In this world, we must constantly fight against the three enemies of the soul that the Catholic Church proposes to us in the Catechism. Anybody? What are the three big enemies?
the flesh,
The world, the flesh, and the devil.
Absolutely. Yeah, the devil, the flesh, and the world. Yeah. The fathers of the church always mention this. St. Gregory, St. Augustine, etc. We should not be ignorant or indifferent to the war against evil. The practice of one's duty of state, while being neglectful of the struggle of the faith, which the neo-SSPX proposes today, is wrong. Liberal Catholics detest and have a special repulsion towards the Christian combat and want to reduce it only to a spirit, to a folklore, and do not see in it a true militancy. Lax Catholics believe that they will be saved only by avoiding evil. Liberal Catholics think that it is also necessary to do some good works. However, good Catholics will always be convinced that to be saved, it is not only necessary to avoid evil, sin, to do as much good as we can against sins of omission, but that we must also fight evil in ourselves and in the world as far as possible. That's a great point, Father.
Yes, it's the question of when Pius XII considered the possibility to make a council. They make a commission of cardinals to study this possibility. They say if we have a council, it's necessary to be counter-revolutionary council, because we see all the errors of today, all the dangers for the faith, all the dangers for the church. And this council, if we do this council, it's necessary to be counter-revolutionary. But because it's not sufficient to say the truth and to say condemn the evil, the error, but to give the faithful the arms to come
weapons.
Yeah. To come for the combat for the fights against the evil. That is necessary. It's not sufficient to know to be a good person today. It's not sufficient. But the commission in Pius XII say it's not possible to make a council because the media have too much influence, can have many influence in the bishops, and that's why it's not prudent to make a council. And that's why Pius XII say no, we don't want to make a council. But when he died, immediately John 23 make a council, and now we see the consequences of what is happened. It was real, this reason of Pius XII. No?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's a great division. Lax Catholics, I just don't want to sin. I don't want to commit mortal sin. Or liberal Catholics, I don't want to sin, but I'll do some good works. But that's not enough. The big point here is true Catholics, good Catholics will want to avoid sin, do good works, but also fight. We have to fight error. We have to fight sin in ourselves and in society and in the church. Okay, are we ready? Naturalistic liberalism denies the existence of original sin and its consequences. It denies the existence of evil in the natural world and insists that the natural world is always good. Liberal Catholics minimize the need for Christian combat because they are contaminated by naturalistic liberalism. That is why they are not interested in it. That is why they do not study it. Some go so far as to say that it is enough for us to be good for evil to be extinguished, without the need of fighting it. This is an error that Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre denounced. This is an error that ignores the fact that in all the councils of Holy Mother Church, not Vatican II, of course, truth and doctrine was not only taught, but all the errors of the time are denounced, condemned, and excommunicated very concretely, as well as the people who promoted them. So what did Pius X do to fasten at the ground level? What did he do? What did he require of all Catholic teachers, priests, bishops, anyone who taught in universities, academies, or schools? What did he require to fasten down this point?
The oath against modernism.
Yeah, the anti-modernist oath. Yeah. To profess the faith and fight error.
And this is an anti-modernist. It's not only Catholic. It's anti-modernist.
Yeah.
That is.
Because liberals don't like to be anti.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like the idea of fighting for the faith. They want to sit in the bleachers and stay clean instead of God requires us to be in the trenches and to fight and be shot at. Indifference in the face of evil is sin. We must be enemies of evil. It's a duty. We must hate and fight evil in its various manifestations. When this is reasonably possible, do-goodism and pacifism are not Christian. We Catholics are the soldiers of Christ. Being militant is part of the very nature of the church living in this world. So, well, that's why we have the great sacrament of confirmation, don't we? What does the bishop do traditionally? What does he do to someone who's being confirmed to remind them they must bear suffering and even death for the faith?
He slaps them across the face.
Yeah, he gives them a good slap.
Yes. 5. Primacy of the doctrinal combat. Point 5. The devil, who is very astute, wants to make us forget that the first of all combats is the doctrinal combat, the combat of the faith. Without good doctrine, all the other aspects of our struggle for good can be distorted. The importance of the doctrinal combat lies in the defense of the divine truth, to which we have access by faith. Without truth, there are no solutions. Jesus Christ said, "The truth will set you free." John 8:32. So we really have no choice. We're in this world and we're in part of the church militant. We are bound to fight. That's part of our sanctification. Cardinal Pierre Poitiers said, "You cannot separate one's sanctification from the battle against liberalism. By battling liberalism and modernism, we become sanctified. We become more close to God. We're meant to be more holy, like Our Lady." The importance... All right, so point 6 now. Anything else, Father?
No, I think this is clear. The concept is clear.
Now these points, do they sound clear enough? Or?
Yes.
If you have any questions or points, don't be afraid to ask or raise your hand. 6, we live in a new historical period of revolutions against the Christian order. In the long history of the Church's battles against evil, the naturalistic renaissance of the 15th century began a new historical period, that of revolutions against the Christian social order that once flourished in the Middle Ages. These revolutions are the Protestant Revolution, the French Revolution, the Communist Revolution, the revolution of ideas within the Church with modernism, progressivism, the Second Vatican Council, etc., etc., etc. What makes this period particularly dangerous is that the enemies of the Church are no longer fighting her in a purely external and visceral way, but in a planned, methodical, and more subtle way. For the children of the Church, this time of revolutions has become the time of counter-revolution. Today, one can no longer be perfectly Catholic if one is not a counter-revolutionary, which means anti-Protestant, anti-liberal, anti-communist, anti-modernist, etc. Liberal Catholics are shocked by the prefix anti. Archbishop Lefebvre gave a sermon at Hewko to denounce this error. But God himself can only be against, anti, every form of evil. So to make clear that we're Catholic, we have to distinguish. We have to be anti-liberal, anti-Protestant. And at the time of St. Athanasius, you had to be anti-what to make yourself clear?
Arian.
Anti-Arian. To be a counter-revolutionary does not consist only in understanding evil, nor only in fighting evil, but in fighting evil in a methodical way, that is to say, with intelligence, prudence, and energy. Mm-hmm. Good.
That is the spirit of the Saint Ignace he make the counter-revolution against Protestantism. Something else, the spirituality of something else are counter-revolutionary, very clear, and always he take with intelligence, methods, and energy. That is, but it's not only for the Jesuits. But there are people say, that is for the Jesuits. No, it's for all Christians. For all Christians, we must be. Because the other congregations are founded in the times that is not the same situation, but the Jesuit spirituality is born after the revolution of Protestantism. And Saint Alphonse of Liguori, he are not Jesuit, but he have the same spirit, the counter-revolutionary. You read the writings of Saint Alphonse are very counter-revolutionary, but he are not Jesuit, because some persons want to limit that for the Jesuits. It is error, because Pius XII say if there is a council, it must be counter-revolutionary, but it's all for all the church. It's not only for the Jesuits. I think it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And that's, I see many seminarians. When I am Icon, the French seminarians that have this theory, no, that is for the Jesuits. And they have this, idea is error, because we are in the militant church, not only the Jesuits, but it's for all the Christians. And the crusades,
yes.
Crusades, they are soldiers, and it's not Jesuits.
Mm-hmm.
And today, the Cristeros, or in France, the War of the Vendée, are the soldiers. They very, very good. Are not Jesuits.
Mm-hmm.
And, but we need to be, because the Masonry are very methodic. The enemies of God are today very methodic to destroy the church, to destroy the society, Catholic. And we must be the same, because that is Catholic, the method, because the Masonry copy the method of Catholics. But the method Catholic is the Catholic is methodic, and planified the counter-revolution, planified with energy. It is necessary today more than other times.
Yeah, to be methodic, Father's saying, and organized. So we're trying to be as organized as we can in this stage of the revolution, to form priests, form brothers, emergency priests, emergency brothers, emergency sisters, and encourage the large families, strengthen the marriage bond, and call back our brother priests of the society back to the position that they're supposed to be. And Rome especially. Rome must come back to tradition. So it's a organized battle. See?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
7. Modernism inspired by the French Revolution. In the encyclical Pascendi, Pope St. Pius X denounced and condemned the modernist error, saying that modernism is the most dangerous and harmful of all errors. And why is it the most dangerous? He himself gave us the answer: because it is relativistic. A relativist is capable of accepting all kinds of error, or even all errors, simultaneously. For a relativist, truth is no longer an absolute good, but only a relative good. Thus, he is always ready to sacrifice the truth for the sake of peace, as they say, or for pure diplomacy, or for any human convenience, etc. They accept that every man has his truth, his own truth, even if they are all in contradiction. This only group that such a wide tolerance with everything and everyone, the only group that such a wide tolerance with everything and everyone that relativists cannot tolerate or endure are, guess who?
The Catholics.
Those who affirm that truth is an absolute good, Thomism, Catholic scholasticism, is the only absolute good, and that therefore one cannot be tolerant of error. It is those who affirm the primacy of truth and of Catholic doctrine over all human activities that they cannot tolerate. Yeah, pray for this young man I was on the plane with just recently. He was a mathematician and a college student, trying to convince me that now scientists know that 1 + 1 can equal 10. What can you do with such a mind? For them, they don't like to hear absolute truth. They can't stand it. Right? The Kantism. They can't tolerate Catholic doctrine over all human activities. Modernism is inspired by this concept of universal tolerance, inspired by the French Revolution and of modern subjectivism. Today we have lost the love of truth as such, as well as its primacy and essential characteristics, its uniqueness, coherence, stability. For liberals, truth is no longer an absolute good, but only a relative one. That is why they disguise it, postpone it, misrepresent it, and always sacrifice it for purely practical and transitory reasons. This is the liberal spirit, which is essentially relativistic. So just picture Bishop Follet in his talk, even as recent as 2023, and then an interview in 2012, he was trying to say you can interpret 95% of Vatican II as Catholic, which he's bending over backwards to, please modernist Rome, to work out a deal. That's what it was behind it. And then they come out saying in the doctrinal declaration, the new Mass, we can accept the new Mass and all the new sacraments as legitimately promulgated. So he's playing with words that's please both Rome, modernist Rome, and can sound somewhat digestible to Catholics, but it's liberal language. This is the liberal spirit, which is essentially relativistic. Modernism, the son of liberalism, is the sum of all errors, said St. Pius X, because it is relativistic. Relativistic meaning there's no absolute truth. Okay, anything else on that, Father?
No, it's okay.
Point 8, the seriousness of the problem of the liberal spirit. Doctrinal liberalism explicitly accepts liberal principles, while the liberal spirit, even if it theoretically denies liberal principles and ideas, is infected by them and has a hidden tendency towards them. The modern relativistic and liberal society has engendered a new people, weakened in the love of truth. Catholics have become schizophrenic because they want to be at the same time Catholics and relativists. For doctrinal Catholics, the world must adapt itself to the truth that comes from God. Lord, to whom shall we go? Thou alone hast the words of eternal life. St. John 6:69. For liberal Catholics, the truth must adapt itself to this world. Pastors contaminated by the liberal spirit have regulated the doctrinal combat to a secondary and partial position. The liberal spirit is tenacious, far more tenacious than appearances suggest. Catholics with a liberal spirit are the lurking enemies of doctrinal Catholics. So you do have a dichotomy between liberal Catholics and integral true Catholics. That's even Pius IX mentioned that. He said the greatest enemies of the church are not the atheists, nor the pagans, nor the Jews, but the what?
Liberal clerics.
Liberal Catholics. The liberal spirit is subtly and discreetly corrupting the spirit of faith and is the unsuspecting enemy of the social kingdom of Jesus Christ. So liberal Catholics, for example, will never bring up, for example, separation of church and state, which has been condemned by the church. They won't dare bring that up because, that's too sensitive. It might offend people. And it might appear unpatriotic. But true patriotism is we want the reign of the heart of Jesus over our country. That's true patriotism. And anything else here, Father?
No, I think the importance of this question, because I think we can have the illusion that is sufficient to denounce the doctrinal, liberal doctrinal, no? The Catholics that are liberal but doctrinal. But it's not sufficient, because there are Catholics that have spirit liberal. It's another thing, but it's more dangerous because it's more discreet. And there are Catholics that seem doctrinal, but they have the spirit liberal because they are contaminated of the modern society. That's why it's more dangerous for me, because it's more subtle. And that the Catholic, the spirit liberal. And I see in my life many cases of persons that are, when I see in the seminary, the priests, the seminarians that are very doctrinal, anti-modernist, they are, but the spirit is to adapt to many situations. And they don't want to have problems with the world, not have fights against the situations difficult. They want to have the method liberal, but they have the spirit liberal, but they don't see well. But there's a reality. And we can be contaminated too to the liberal spirit too, because we are born in these times. Maybe we have a little of that too. That's why we need to be careful, examine our fights to see if it's something that is not in order, that is correct in the fight. But how the many members of the society, many members of the many faithful accept the new line of Bishop Fellet. They accept it too easy. But it's a line. There is a diplomacy with spirit liberal. And that's why I see that many priests accept that too easy. It's not normal. When they are study in the seminary, study the writings of Bishop Lefebvre, he knows well the thinking of Bishop Lefebvre, and they don't have reaction against many situations that are compromise, practical compromise. Like it's more subtle because the doctrine is more easy to identify. But when some person have the spirit liberal, it's more difficult to identify. But can be, and there are many. Today we see many priests accept the new diplomacy with Rome, and no, for them it's no problem. No problem. There is no see nothing. I say wrong.
Yeah, wrong. They don't see anything wrong with it.
It's because they have some spirit liberal too, and it's more difficult to find, to find these spirits in the persons. We are contaminated of that too. That's why we need to be vigilant and to be always to see if our actions are in the spirit of the church, the spirit of Saint Pius X, spirit of fight of Bishop Lefebvre, and the spirit of the, we need to read the writings of the saints like Saint Alphonse de Liguori, the saints anti-liberal, and that help us very much. Can help us.
Father Dennis Fahey would often meditate on the papal encyclicals because they are anti-liberal, and the good, obviously before the Vatican II popes, they were powerful encyclicals against the liberal spirit. So he would meditate on that to keep his mind straight, because we're all infected with liberalism. We have it in some degree. You can't enter a smoke-filled room and come out not smelling like smoke. So we live in a liberal age, drowning in rebellion against God. And so we have to pray to the Virgin Mary to clean it out of us and study the good doctrine. The encyclicals of the popes, Archbishop Lefebvre's writings, Cardinal P. A lot of the works are in French and some in Spanish, but they're getting slowly translated. A recent one is Monsignor de Lassus, who's been being translated now. Monsignor de Lassus is being translated now in English.
It's good.
Very good. Oh, we lost it.
And if you see the Council Vatican II, the characteristic of Council is no fight. There is no enemies. There is no errors. They don't speak about that. And Bishop Lefebvre say there is a conference that he make an icon when me are there this moment. He say, I think this not only you can find in the doctrinal documents of the council many things that looks Catholic, but it's not only that is a spirit of council. And all the documents of the council are contaminated of this spirit. And I think it's like a spirit liberal. And all the documents are contaminated of this spirit. All. And he said that, it's not possible to separate this element of spirit liberal from the documents, because there is these documents are made in a context historic, in a context of the older documents, and all are relative. All the documents are, we need to be interpreted with the others. And he said it's not possible to separate the spirit liberal, the spirit of council, of all the documents. That's why Bishop Lefebvre never take
cites or quotes from the Vatican II,
never of any documents. They never take a reference doctrinal, never. But recently in the society, when there is the problem, of the question of vaccines, they say you want to see the question of morality. He can make reference to a document of the official of the new church, and he send. I don't remember if it's Bishop Fellet that do that or another priest, but is in an official website of the society. There's reference to the one document official of the new church. But Bishop Lefebvre never did that in any occasion.
You ever notice, like Bishop Schneider, Cardinal Burke, who else? Bishop Strickland. They'll make a Catholic point, but they'll quote Vatican II. They'll quote Lumen Gentium or Gaudium et Spes, right? And it undermines their work, right? Any questions so far? Okay, stay awake. It's the afternoon, I know. All right, point 9. The revolution of the conciliar church continues. Here we are 60 years now, after 65. It's 60 years since Vatican II. So you and I, we're all born into the battle. We're all born in the fight. None of us remember a good Catholic Pope, right? You were born under...
59, I'm born.
So, John the 23rd?
Yes, is the beginning of...
Yeah.
Pius XII died in
58, yeah. So, we're born into the war, gentlemen. So here, some disillusioned souls believed in the restoration of Pope Benedict XVI, but in reality the revolution continues. Anti-Marian revolution, anti-papacy revolution, anti-church revolution, anti-theology revolution, anti-philosophy revolution, anti-exegesis revolution, anti-liturgical revolution, anti-ecclesiastical law revolution. Religious liberty is more widespread, as is ecumenism. The church continues to be Judaized. Pacifism and immigration are promoted in place of eternal truths. The new Pope Leo XIV is an enthusiast for the Second Vatican Council, of the new Mass, and of course, Pope Francis, etc. Remember in one talk he said, Pope Francis is looking down at us from heaven. Well, I hope that's true, but very unlikely. The ambiguous, equivocal acts and omissions of the conciliar popes continue to destroy the faith. There is no improvement. The revolution within the church continues. So especially those who dream, we're in a new age. Look at Leo XIV. He's not dressed in rainbow chasuble. He has a nice smile. He's wearing some more traditional clothing. He allows Cardinal Burke to have the Latin Mass in St. Peter's. Things are getting better. But they're not. They're not. It's much worse. Because of this relativism, there's no truth. So Latin Mass one weekend in St. Peter's, then the LGBTQ another weekend, and then the Anglicans another weekend, and you see, it's all, there's no truth. It's just all the soup of relativism, indifferentism. Point 10. Any other points, Father?
No, nothing.
The neo-SSPX in the process of conciliarization. No one speaks of the failure of the great diplomatic maneuver of Bishop Fillet to so-called convert Rome from its conciliar errors. After a whole campaign over many years of soporific conferences around the world to foster the optimism of the faithful of tradition regarding the conversion of Rome and its benignity towards us, no results have yet been seen. Where are the results of conversion in Rome after 25 years of Bishop Fillet's optimistic diplomacy? Are there any serious and consistent fruits? Is it Rome that has opened up to tradition thanks to the brilliant diplomacy of Bishop Fillet, or is it the SSPX that has fallen into the nets of the diplomatic tactics of conciliar Rome? Very good point, Father. Are they not imprudently walking into a trap? Bishop Fillet has refused to accept the distinction made by Archbishop Lefebvre between the Catholic Church and the conciliar Church, and therefore does not want to see that conciliar Rome is the enemy of tradition and therefore nothing can be expected of it. The Neo-SSPX has begun its process of conciliarization. It is heading towards modernism. So remember, you all are aware of Bishop Fillet's interview where he said, no, it's not a trap. Everything Pope Francis is offering us, it's all up front, all promising, all good. It's not a trap. Remember?
He said, obviously not a trap.
Obviously not a trap, yeah. So sad. 11. Anything else here, Father, on that point?
No, it's okay.
In the Neo-SSPX, they claim to continue to be the children of Archbishop Lefebvre, but they are unfaithful to his main directives. Very true. Point A. So here there is a contrast. Point A is the previous SSPX. Point B will be the new SSPX. So this will contrast in the next few paragraphs. A. Previous SSPX. In his sermon at the Episcopal consecrations, Archbishop Lefebvre said that what he intended to do was Operation Survival of Tradition, and that if negotiations with Conciliar Rome had continued, it would have been Operation Suicide. And here's a quote from the Archbishop, June 30th, 1988. It is not for me to know when tradition will regain its rights at Rome, but I think it is my duty to provide the means of doing that which I shall call Operation Survival. Operation Survival for tradition. Today, this day, is Operation Survival. If I had made this deal with Rome by continuing with the agreements we had signed and by putting them into practice, I would have performed Operation Suicide. Sermon of the Archbishop, 1988. So, previous SSPX, no agreement, not possible until Rome comes back. Here's the Neo-SSPX now, point B. Today, the Neo-SSPX promotes Operation Suicide because it progressively accepts silence in the doctrinal combat more and more each day in order to relentlessly continue its senseless and failed diplomacy with regard to Conciliar Rome. So, previous SSPX, Operation Suicide continues. Here at the Oratory, the Catholic priests and faithful of the resistance, it's Operation Suicide. Operation Survival.
Yes, they continue the process of diplomatic with Rome and to have the agreement of Rome. They continue that when Bishop Lefebvre say it's necessary to stop now because he do that and he see that no works, and there is a moment that he say Bishop Lefebvre say that is enough, and now no more. But the new society want to continue this process, and they want to make some agreements with Rome, because now Rome give the society the permission to confess, the permission to have the marriage, how do you say marriage?
Jurisdiction for marriages, confessions,
holy orders, and all that is agreement from Rome. It's not that is a process of to be accepted.
So it's ongoing Operation Suicide for the new SSPX.
They continue this process. It's not finished, but they are advanced. And the document of 2012 of the Bishop Fillet is a big walk, a big step in this process, because they accept many things, and the question doctrinal, and that is the most important question, and in this process of to be accepted by Rome, and is the question doctrinal that is the most important, and Bishop Fillet accept many things in this document.
Yes. So Operation Survival versus Operation Suicide. That's the point here. So we must simply continue Operation Survival. And the future is in God's hands. Who will be our bishop? Who will be our next good pope? God knows. We have to trust in him. Okay. Next point. Next point A. Here we go. Previous SSPX. Point A. Archbishop Lefebvre did not believe in the legitimacy of the new Mass and the new sacraments. He said, the new Mass is dangerous and therefore bad because it was created in the spirit of ecumenism. It diminishes the faith of the faithful and ultimately gives them a Protestant spirit. We do not say that the new Mass is heretical, nor that it is invalid, but we refuse to say that it is legitimate, that it is perfectly orthodox, meaning traditional. This was his response of Archbishop Lefebvre in Communicantes magazine, August 1985 in Canada. And he says also, from whom will these seminarians receive the sacrament of holy orders? From the conciliar bishops, from whom all the sacraments are doubtful? This is Archbishop Lefebvre saying this. Because it is no longer known exactly what their intentions are. June 30th, 1988. And then the same could also be said of the new Mass. Here's Archbishop Lefebvre's sermon in Lille, 1976. The rite of Mass is a bastard rite. The sacraments are bastard sacraments. We no longer know if they are sacraments which give grace or which do not give grace. And then Archbishop Lefebvre, 76 again, quote, the union desired by these liberal Catholics, a union between the Church and the Revolution and subversion, is for the Church an adulterous union, adulterous. And that adulterous union can produce only bastards. And who are those bastards? They are our new rites. The rite of Mass is a bastard rite. The sacraments are bastard sacraments. We no longer know if they are sacraments which give grace or do not give grace. Wow, there's no pulling punches with Archbishop Lefebvre. Bastard, bâtard in French means illegitimate. So illegitimate sacraments, illegitimate Mass. So why is Bishop Follet and the new leaders of the SSPX calling it legitimate Mass and illegitimate sacraments? When the Archbishop was very clear, they are not legitimate. If they're legitimate, then they're good for souls. But they're not. In contrast, now the point B, in contrast, now the neo-SSPX, here. The neo-SSPX affirmed in its 2012 doctrinal declaration that the new Mass and all the new sacraments are, quote, valid and legitimate. We quote the doctrinal declaration here. We declare that we recognize, and we need a Z there, we recognize the validity of the sacrifice of the Mass and of the sacraments, celebrated with the intention of doing what the Church does, according to the rites indicated in the typical editions of the Roman Missal and the rituals of the sacraments, are legitimately promulgated by Popes Paul VI and John Paul II. So, that's right in the doctrinal declaration. If Archbishop Lefebvre described these sacraments as bastardized and dubious, how could they be legitimate at the same time? We must emphasize that the word legitimate in the 2012 document regarding the new Mass and the new sacraments has enormous consequences. In theology, the concept of legitimacy is equivalent to morality, lawfulness, and legal impeccability. And if something is moral and lawful, then it cannot be anything other than fully Catholic. This simple word legitimate not only insinuates but also includes the tremendous conclusion that Archbishop Lefebvre was initially wrong to refuse to say the new Mass and to prohibit it in his seminaries. We know that Catholic theology teaches us that it is never lawful to disobey our ecclesiastical superiors, except in the case of an order that is contrary to the faith or to morality. If the new Mass is legitimate, then Archbishop Lefebvre was wrong from the beginning of his work, and everything he did afterwards was nothing but an immense act of disobedience, and he should never have founded the SSPX. In short, all his work was an immense act of pride, because the new Mass, the new sacraments, etc., are moral, valid, and legitimate, says the document. And therefore he had no sufficient doctrinal reason to disobey. Bishop Follet, Father Schmidberger, and other leaders of the Neo-SSPX have betrayed Archbishop Lefebvre with a single stroke of the pen and a single stroke and a single piece of paper. They have neutralized, that's a Z there. They have neutralized all of Archbishop Lefebvre's doctrinal combat, everything that Archbishop Lefebvre held most precious and most important. Just a piece of paper, you say? Yes, but one with enormous and very serious consequences. If the serious doctrinal reasons that justified the founding of the SSPX, and also the disobedience and prudent distancing from conciliar Rome, are removed, then this would mean that it never had a real reason to exist, and should therefore disappear. Today, all of Bishop Follet's efforts are focused on returning to the previous situation, returning to apparent legality and being welcomed back into the arms of modernist Rome at the price of compromise on doctrine. In our religion, doctrinal truths are the foundation of the entire edifice of the Church. The so-called legitimacy of the new Mass and the new sacraments implies that the state of necessity, which justified the validity of all our confessions for so many years, the lawfulness of our activities, etc., never existed. It should be added that Archbishop Lefebvre conditionally reordained priests of the conciliar Church, who were drawn to tradition for the same reason that he considered the conciliar sacraments to be doubtful. Today, the Neo-SSPX has abandoned this practice, as well as that of giving conditional confirmation and performing the supplying of the ceremonies for the baptism of children. It is clear that the Neo-SSPX no longer considers these sacraments to be doubtful. Everybody follow that?
Yes.
Yes. So, is the new Mass legitimate?
No.
Is the new Mass legitimately promulgated by Pope Paul VI and John the 23rd and John Paul II?
No.
Do they have the right to introduce into the Church a poisonous Mass?
No.
Does any Pope have the right to overthrow the Tridentine Mass canonized in perpetuity of Pius V?
No.
And there is another thing Bishop Lefebvre said too, that the new Mass is not allowed. It's
Right.
not allowed. He said that too.
That's right, yeah.
It's not allowed. Not have legitimacy, but it's not allowed because there are not respect all the process normal of the Church to make that. And that's he said. The new Mass is not allowed.
Yes. That's right. Yes, these are very, very heavy hitting points, but they're very important.
Also, if the new SSPX is saying that it's legitimately promulgated, why not say it? Why wouldn't you say it? If
Right.
you're saying it's legitimate.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
if it's legitimate, which they say, they should be saying it.
Huh?
If the new SSPX says the new Mass is legitimate, conclusion, they should be offering the new Mass. They should be saying it.
Yes, we are. There is no reason to disobey, to say the new Mass because it's legitimate. And that what to say is moral, is allowed, is not a sin, is not problem doctrinal. We are disobedient in this case, but it's not true. We are the new mass is not a rite Catholic. Bishop Lefebvre said that is not a rite
Catholic rite. It's not
a Catholic rite. He said it's not a Catholic rite.
No.
It's very...
Well, I've said that to many fellow priests, my brother priests in the society, because a lot of them said, well, I'm not going to do anything until I'm forced to say the new Mass. But I say to them, but once you accept it's legitimate, that's one step from saying it. And I always usually compare it to abortion. When does the woman commit the mortal sin? Is it when she pays for it and schedules the abortion and intends to do it? Or when she actually goes in and has the abortion done? When is the treason, the murder actually committed?
When she commits the intent.
When the intention is done, yes, and pays for it and sets the date. So once you call the new Mass legitimate, all right, the priest may not say it this year, next year, maybe 10 years. I hope they never say it.
But you have no justification to defend not to say it once you say it's legitimate.
That's correct.
I think Father Ruiz said that last retreat when people were asking questions. He brought up that point.
Yeah, speak louder. Yeah. Yeah, Father, I remember Father brought that up. Yes. I know. Ideas have consequences. Ideas have consequences. Truth matters. Doctrine matters. So Bishop Williamson, in his better days, in his golden days, he told us, so if you have some wild youth that are itching to do something, they can climb up on the billboards and paint on the billboards. Principles rule. Ideas matter. All right, next contrast. A, previous SSPX. Archbishop Lefebvre said that the new Mass is intrinsically evil and that therefore attendance at it is unlawful and immoral. Quote, the new Mass is dangerous and therefore bad because it was created in the spirit of ecumenism. It diminishes the faith of the faithful and ultimately gives them a Protestant spirit. That's Archbishop Lefebvre in Communicantes in Canada. Therefore, it should be clear that the faithful should not attend the new Mass. He says, not only can these new Masses not be the object of an obligation for the Sunday precept, but the canonical regulations which the Church is accustomed to apply to the Communicatio in Sacris, with schismatic Orthodox cults and with Protestant cults, must be applied to them. This is the position of Archbishop Lefebvre, 1979, in the Cor Unum Bulletin. Participating in an act of Communicatio in Sacris. Communicatio in Sacris in canon law means if a Catholic goes and prays with Protestants or prays with Jews, or a priest or a bishop, even worse, that's called Communicatio in Sacris, which is a mortal sin. It breaks what commandment?
First commandment.
Yes. What's more serious, to break a first commandment or to break the 6th through the 10th?
First.
Participating in an act of Communicatio in Sacris is, of course, a serious mortal sin and is prohibited by the Catholic Church. In contrast, B, the Neo-SSPX. Today, the Neo-SSPX no longer clearly denounces that the new Mass gradually destroys the faith of the faithful and that it is therefore intrinsically evil. Another quote from Archbishop Lefebvre, 1984, then there are some who would be ready to sacrifice the fight for the faith by saying, let us first re-enter the Church. Let us do everything to re-enter in the official public structure of the Church. Let us be silent about our dogmatic problem. Let us be silent about our fight. Let us not speak about the malice of the new Mass anymore. And that's what they're doing. All right, next 2 points. A, the previous SSPX. Any points, Father?
No.
In all his sermons, lectures, writings, etc., Archbishop Lefebvre never failed to denounce the new church and its errors without any misleading omissions. And he never cited any document or text from the Second Vatican Council as a doctrinal reference or authority. B, in contrast, the Neo-SSPX. In the Neo-SSPX, even if something is incompletely said, they no longer want to say everything, nor criticize the conciliar popes or the council, so as not to displease conciliar Rome or the local bishops. Many of Archbishop Lefebvre's teachings have been censored, not to mention that Bishop Follet himself made a statement in the journal La Liberté interview saying that 95% of the conciliar teaching is Catholic. Quote, the SSPX does not reject Vatican II in its entirety. On the contrary, Bishop Follet has stated that the Society accepts 90% of its teachings. Instead, it claims that some of the assertions of Vatican II contradict other magisterial teachings that have greater authority, and hence that accepting the doctrines of the Catholic Church requires accepting these more authoritative teachings and rejecting the small proportion of errors in Vatican II. That's from October 2013 on an SSPX website. So the SSPX website is itself saying that Bishop Follet accepts 95% of Vatican II as Catholic. And then there's other quotes. The Catholic Trumpet has brought up numerous ones as well. Okay, anything to say on those, Father? Okay, next contrast. A, previous SSPX. Archbishop Lefebvre, a great defender of the Holy Mass and promoter of decorum in the Church's liturgy, never separated the liturgy from the doctrinal combat. He refused to remain silent regarding the Second Vatican Council and its errors, never hesitating to name the destroyers and enemies of the Church. So he gave names. I remember him mentioning Cardinal Casaroli, that the very day Archbishop Lefebvre was consecrating the 4 bishops to save the faith, Cardinal Casaroli was in Moscow shaking hands with the communists. B, Neo-SSPX. In contrast, in the Neo-SSPX, liturgia sine doctrina, which means liturgy without doctrine, Mass without the doctrinal combat. It is preferred to please the faithful with a colorful liturgy, beautiful ceremonies, beautiful music, beautiful buildings, etc. But the bread of doctrine and the integral doctrinal combat are omitted. I repeat, the integral doctrinal combat are omitted. Devotion to the Holy Mass is promoted, which in itself is a good thing, but without the necessary integrity required in doctrinal combat. Let us remember that the truth of the faith precedes the Holy Mass, that without integrity in Catholic doctrine, we cannot fruitfully attend Holy Mass. So you need the right doctrine, right? And Bishop Vigano recently said this. He denounced the conservative traditional Catholics, we could say liberal traditional Catholics, who are all about the Mass, but won't attack the doctrine of Vatican II and the doctrine behind the new Mass. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I wish he would renounce the conservative politicians as well.
Yeah, he was very much pro-Trump, that's right.
Extremely pro-Trump.
Yeah, he should come out against Trump's Judaizing and Trump's full support for the abortion pill. He needs to come out against that. It is not enough for them to criticize some modern errors. The problem is that they no longer want to denounce the whole problem that afflicts the Church today. Denounce the recent scandals of the conciliar popes. Denounce the Second Vatican Council with all its errors. denounce the new Mass as intrinsically evil, not defending the doctrine in its entirety, constitutes a real compromise, the compromise par excellence. And this situation will naturally tend to worsen. Thus, all their attempt to restore the Church are doomed to failure. With all this silence, they have not achieved any fruit of conversion on the part of the conciliar Church. On the contrary, the situation in Rome today is increasingly serious and appalling. Such optimism in the face of so much destruction is simply blindness. Anything to bring up?
That last statement's so good.
I know, these are some heavy-hitting punches.
Yes, because they say we are the child, or what do you say, the children of
the sons of Archbishop.
The sons of Bishop Lefebvre, and you are not, because you are disobedient. You are, but we can see, we can verify where are the true sons of the. But Bishop Lefebvre, the heritage of Bishop Lefebvre is a doctrinal heritage first. And after of the other things, yes, but first is a doctrinal. Is the reason that he found the society to defend the faith, to defend the tradition, to continue the tradition. But now the tradition is no more clear. The concept of tradition for them, there is the decadence in the society. And each day we understand the comments of some faithful, they comment many little facts that are symptomatic of the society. This is going down. It's a decadence. The other day, one faithful asked one priest of the society that I know very well, this priest, Spanish priest, and he asked the question of the conciliar church, is the Catholic church or not? He say, the conciliar church and the Catholic church is the same. But it's not true. That is not the we can verify in the words of Bishop Lefebvre. He say the contrary thing, and that is symptomatic of the decadence of the society. That and other things. That there are the priests that say to the faithful, you can go to the new Mass. Maybe not all the priests say that, but there are some ones. And it's symptomatic too. Or they say, you can go now to the Society St. Peter's, to the Mass if you want, you can go there too. And other times, never say that, the society, because Bishop Lefebvre don't want that.
Yeah, they never used to say that.
It's never no more clear. The limits, there are no more clear. And other times, if a priest says something like that, immediately the superiors say him, why you say that? Immediately, no. And today, there are many facts like that. They don't have consequences. The priest do things like that. We don't see that the superiors call him to say what happened. What you say? Do you say that? Nothing. Mm-hmm. There is other situation. No. No promotes the doctrine. This is the contrary thing. It's become laxist in doctrine now in the society. Maybe not all the priests, but in general, yes, we can constate that.
Yeah, I know of one mission. The society shut down a mission, and the society priest told them, "Well, you're just going to have to go to St. Peter's Mass." Mm-hmm. So, never was that said before, because it's a danger to the faith. The compromise on doctrine with St. Peter's position. Okay. Previous SSPX, next section. A. For Archbishop Lefebvre, there could be no practical agreement with Rome without a prior doctrinal agreement. B, in contrast, the neo-SSPX. That was even Archbishop Fallet's position in the past. But in his letter to the three bishops discussing the possibility of an agreement with Rome, April 14, 2012, Bishop Fallet renounced a doctrinal agreement preceding a practical agreement, saying, quote, "For the common good of the society, we would much prefer the current intermediate solution of the status quo, but obviously Rome no longer tolerates it." So now we have to go ahead with some form of canonical solution without the doctrinal clarity, without doctrinal agreement. You follow?
Yes.
So previously, doctrine first, no agreement with Rome. Now, agreement with Rome, we can work things out, doctrine on the back burner, doctrine in the back seat, which is to commit suicide. Another next contrast. Previous SSPX. Archbishop Lefebvre recommended avoiding any collaboration with the conciliar church, as well as with all those groups that are collaborating with this church, either doctrinally or practically, such as the Ecclesia Dei societies and others. Archbishop Lefebvre says, page 13 of the Spiritual Journey, English edition, "It is therefore a strict duty for every priest wanting to remain Catholic to separate himself from this conciliar church for as long as it does not rediscover the tradition of the church and of the Catholic faith." Really clear, right? Stay away from the conciliar church. Absolutely clear. The reason is the serious danger of contagion with conciliar errors. And he says, "In general, we advise the faithful not to attend masses celebrated by priests who have abandoned the fight against the new Mass. It is very dangerous. It is very dangerous that one day they may be forced by their bishop to celebrate the new Mass as well, to celebrate both Masses. While the faithful wonder whether they should attend these Masses, which are now authorized by the bishops, indult Masses and St. Peter's and so forth, for us the message remains the same. We believe that one should not attend these Masses because it is dangerous to affirm that the new Mass is as valid as the traditional one. Little by little, these priests who accept these conditions will have the same tendencies as those who say the new Mass, and one day, perhaps they themselves will say it and lead our traditionalists to the new Mass. The priests of the indult," he says, Archbishop Lefebvre, "are obliged to accept that the new Mass is as valid as that of St. Pius V. This is what we have always refused, what we have always opposed, because we consider the new Mass to be dangerous and therefore evil. Because it was made in the ecumenical spirit, it diminishes the faith of the faithful and ends up giving them a Protestant spirit." Archbishop Lefebvre, 85. Very clear. All right, in contrast, the new SSPX. Here we go. Today in the neo-SSPX, the faithful are already allowed and even encouraged to attend Ecclesia Dei Masses. And those of societies committed, where are we? Oh, up higher?
Up.
Committed to Rome, which defend, quote unquote, defend only the traditional Mass, but are not opposed to the new Mass, and dangerously accept the council and collaboration with conciliar Rome. Furthermore, today the neo-SSPX already collaborates at the sacramental level with the conciliar church, right? They already have to submit their marriages to the local bishops. That's a fact. And since today the neo-SSPX already behaves like these Ecclesia Dei societies, then the advice that Archbishop Lefebvre gave regarding these societies can also be applied to it. That is, today we must also distance ourselves from the neo-SSPX We must not attend its masses or participate in any of its activities because there is a danger of being contaminated by the same tendencies. So that's true. You even have SSPX priests calling the Tridentine Mass in their bulletins. I know this is a fact. I saw the bulletins. Calling the Tridentine Mass the extraordinary form that we celebrate here in our parish, which means they acknowledge the what?
Legitimacy
Of the
ordinary
form. If you accept the extraordinary form, you accept it's in contrast with, right? The ordinary form of the Mass.
Yeah. Just can you say ordinary and extraordinary is to say the Mass, new Mass is a normal Mass of the Church, and the Mass traditional is a tolerate right of the Church, because there is no more the right of the conciliar Church. That's why that say the extraordinary rite want to say there is a mass that is tolerate. It's like a folkloric action, no? But it's not for always, because it's tolerate. When something is tolerate, it's because it's for some time, but not for always. That is the sense of the word of tolerate.
Yeah.
You see?
But there's no way a Catholic priest or bishop can accept that new Mass.
No.
And then Archbishop Lefebvre, if ever you seminarians, at some point in your formation, you'll have to read the book A Bishop Speaks, and Archbishop Lefebvre goes into the history of Martin Luther and the beginnings of the Lutheran Mass, the Lutheran service. And in Germany, what they did to the Mass to change it to the Lutheran service. And he compares all that, goes through the documents and compares it to the new Mass and shows it's exactly the same. Turning the altar to face the people, no more an altar but a table, no more 3 cloths but 1 cloth, no more giving of just the consecrated host, but eating of the consecrated host and drinking of the chalice, because it's a meal, right? You have to drink and eat, and all that.
Yes, when I am in Italy, I have one of my faithful was a great professor in the university, I think Bologna in Italy. This man came to say me, I am a teacher of history in the university, but I study especially the periods of Protestantism, of Luther, all that. He said me, I become traditionalist because I see all the methods that Luther utilized to make Germany Protestant.
The methods Luther used.
Yes, it is the same methods that the Council Vatican II utilized to become to the Catholics today. That is the same methods, the same. First, the communion in the not in the knees. Standing, and after the communion in the hands, and after, when there are no sufficient priests, they take one faithful to make direction of the prayers, and little by little these persons become the pastors, Protestant. And he said, all that is the same process of the Vatican II. It's the same that Luther. They take the same. And that's why when he studied this period, he became of tradition, this professor. Wow. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah.
If you want the blinds dropped on.
Oh, please, yeah. Just a little bit. Yeah, thanks, Michael. Okay, we move on. I know this is quite intense, but it's very important. It's the other one, Michael, to the left. That one. The one to the right's fine. All right, next contrast. Previous SSPX. Thank you. Archbishop Lefebvre accepted and quoted The secret of Our Lady of La Salette. Oh, La
Salette.
Capital L there. Which said, Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. Archbishop Lefebvre expressly stated that Rome today is in apostasy. He said, now I sincerely believe that we are dealing with a counterfeit church and not the Catholic Church. They no longer teach the Catholic faith. They no longer have the same faith, the same doctrine, or the same morals as their predecessors. So it is no longer possible. That's Econ, June 21st, 1978. And again, this council represents in our view, and in the view of the Roman authorities, a new church, which they call the Conciliar Church. Archbishop Lefebvre, La Figaro, August 4th, 1976. Again, that Conciliar Church is a schismatic church because it breaks with the Catholic Church that has always been. It has its new dogmas, its new priesthood, its new institutions, its new worship. The church that affirms such errors is at once schismatic and heretical. This conciliar church is therefore not Catholic. To whatever extent Pope, bishops, priests, or the faithful adhere to this new church, they separate themselves from the Catholic Church. Wow, that's heavy, but it's true. Archbishop Lefebvre, Reflections on his Suspension on Divinis, July 29, 1976. And next quote, obviously we are against the conciliar church, which is virtually schismatic, even if they deny it. In practice, it is a church virtually excommunicated because it is a modernist church. That's 1989. That's 2 years before he died. The next quote, Rome has lost the faith, my dear friends. Rome is in apostasy. These are not just words. These are not empty words that I am saying to you. It is the truth. Rome is in apostasy. We can no longer trust these people. They have left the church. Quitte l'église. They have left the church. They have left the church. They are leaving the church. That is certain, certain, certain. And you can hear that recording somewhere on the internet. That's 1987. And then in contrast, now the new SSPX, in the neo-SSPX, this secret of La Salette is no longer accepted because they do not want to recognize that conciliar Rome is in apostasy. For them, the conciliar church and the for them, the Catholic Church and the conciliar church are one and the same. And that comes from Bishop Fillet. And because they refuse to accept the distinction between these two churches, they have fallen into the sovereign absurdity of affirming that the conciliar church, which promotes so many errors, is also the Catholic Church, that the conciliar church is the visible church. Quote, this history of a visible church put forward by Dom Girard and Mr. Madarin is childish. It is incredible that one can speak of a visible church for the conciliar church as opposed to the Catholic Church that we are trying to represent and continue. Archbishop Lefebvre, 1989. Okay, any questions on those?
It's clear the words of Bishop Lefebvre.
Okay, point 12. Are you ready?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we've been at this here. This is an hour and a half. So, all right, keep courage. We'll get you a good dessert tonight. Yes.
Do you want me to ring the bell at any point if it goes on too long?
Well, ring the bell for a rosary at 5:25 as normal, and we'll take it from there.
Okay.
We'll see how far we get. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Point 12. The 2012 Doctrinal Declaration remains in force and has never been retracted. This declaration, which was made in an official and public document addressed to conciliar Rome, absolutely merits a public retraction and reparation. a retraction that the leaders of the neo-SSPX have always refused to make. The reason is that it remains in force and in line with the logic of the negotiations with Conciliar Rome. This declaration initially smoothed over the obstacles in the process of drawing closer to Rome in order to facilitate the current agreements. What are the fruits of all this diplomacy of surrender to Rome? Now the neo-SSPX has so-called delegation and jurisdiction from Rome to hear confessions, celebrate marriages, confirm, ordain priests. Today there is already a true collaboration with the local bishops and their conciliar pastoral ministry, expressed in the norms of the new code, which is nothing more than the legislative application of the modernist Second Vatican Council. The superiors of the neo-SSPX have already forgotten that Archbishop Lefebvre taught us that we did not need any permission from Rome to say the Tridentine Mass, because Pope St. Pius V himself approved it, ad perpetuitatem. That means till the end of the world. That is forever.
For all time.
Yes.
Ad perpetuatem, for all time, for always.
That is forever, and that we did not need any special permission to hear confessions, to marry our faithful, or to administer any other sacrament, because we had extraordinary jurisdiction under the general law of the Church in cases of grave necessity. The doctrine of the faith precedes obedience, the Mass, and the sacraments. The doctrine of the faith precedes the liturgy and pastoral care. A liturgy without doctrine becomes pharisaical and defenseless against error. Today, for the neo-SSPX to be silent on doctrine is considered a so-called prudent act. The doctrinal combat is no longer the priority. Today, the priority is to be accepted by Rome, even if Rome is not converted. Even if Rome is not converted, does not want to convert, and gives no serious sign of conversion. Rome has never been as bad as it is today. Bishop Fillet and Father Schmidberger find it, quote-unquote, abnormal that tradition is not within canonical legality and recognized by Conciliar Rome. But they are so blind that they no longer see that Rome's situation today is not normal, and that it has never been as abnormal in the entire history of the Church as it is today. If it gets too cold, you can lower the windows. Quote, such things as are easy to say, says the Archbishop, to stay inside the Church or to put oneself inside the Church. What does that mean? Firstly, what church are we talking about? If you mean the conciliar Church, then we who have struggled against the council for 20 years because we want the Catholic Church, we would have to re-enter this conciliar Church in order supposedly to make it Catholic? That is a complete illusion. It is not the subjects that make the superiors, but the superiors who make the subjects. Amongst the whole Roman Curia, amongst all the bishops, the world's bishops who are progressives, I would have been completely swamped. I would have been able to do nothing. That's Archbishop Lefebvre, 1989. He says, then there are some who would be ready to sacrifice the fight for the faith by saying, let us first re-enter the Church. Let us first re-enter the Church. Let us do everything to re-enter in the official public structure of the Church. Let us be silent about our dogmatic problem. Let us be silent about our fight. Let us not speak about the malice of the new Mass anymore. Let us close our mouths and say nothing anymore. Let's not be opposed to them. Let's not say anything anymore about the issues of religious liberty, of human rights, and of ecumenism. Let's be silent. Let's be silent, and then we'll be able to re-enter into the structure of the church. We will please those who are in the church. We are going to be able to re-enter into the church, and once we will be inside the church, you will see we will be able to fight. We will be able to do this, and we'll be able to do that. And the Archbishop says about all that, this is absolutely false. You don't enter into a structure and under superiors saying that you will overthrow everything as soon as you are inside, whereas they have all the means to suppress us. They have all the authority. December 21st, 1984. The great error and absurdity in the failed diplomacy of Bishop Fillet and Father Schmidberger is to believe that tradition can be saved by collaborating with those who are the great enemies of tradition. To believe that modernist Rome can be converted by placing oneself under its orders, the public combat against conciliar errors would soon be non-existent. So yes, you put yourself under these bishops and the modernist popes, you're going to be silenced. You're going to be neutralized. The neo-SSPX has fallen into its own trap and is heading towards modernism, towards the religion of the Antichrist that was historically prepared by liberalism. Point 13. Okay, any other points?
Yes.
If it gets cold, you can lower the windows. Okay, point 13. The history of failed attempts by various traditional societies that wanted to convert modernist Rome from within by making agreements with it without compromising doctrine and ended up in a deadly trap and serious compromises in the faith. So here's a whole list of the traditional groups that stepped into the traps. First, La Barue Monastery under Dom Gerard Benedictine in 1988. Second, the Fraternity of St. Peter in 1988. Third, Christ the King Institute in 1990. Fourth, Campos, Brazil, St. John Vianney in 2003. 5, the Good Shepherd Institute in France in 2005. 6, the Oasis Sisters and Priests in 2007. 7, the Redemptorists of Scotland in 2012. And 8, the Society of St. Pius X in 2012. And where is the trap? You cannot be free to profess the whole faith within the official structure of the church occupied by modernists, because the structure of the church is a hierarchical structure. And Archbishop Lefebvre said about this, that is a complete illusion. It is not the subjects that make the superiors, but the superiors who make the subjects. So obviously, if you go under superiors who are anti-traditional, they're gonna squeeze it right out of you, crush it right out of you. Yeah, you can get these too. Okay, and that one too. Number point 14. Point 14. Clarifications for those who resist. Clarifications for those who resist. It is not lawful to recommend attendance at the new Mass. Archbishop Lefebvre. The new Mass is dangerous and therefore evil because it was created in the spirit of ecumenism, diminishes the faith of the faithful, and ultimately gives them a Protestant spirit. 1985, Archbishop Lefebvre. We must not recommend attendance at the masses and activities of the neo-SSPX. This is also because of Archbishop Lefebvre's recommendations regarding the Ecclesia Dei societies. Recommendations that today apply logically and perfectly to the neo-SSPX. Advising parishioners otherwise deprives the resistance of its reason for existing and easily disorientates the faithful, often definitively, from priests who are faithful to the true tradition. It is a way of sabotaging the resistance. Next point. We cannot remain silent on the most essential doctrinal points. There is a particular obligation for pastors to recall the truths that are most questioned today, because there is a strong temptation to be carried away by the pressure of this world, forgetting the doctrinal battle and opting for comfort is not the mission of true apostles. St. Paul to Timothy, chapter 4, preach the word, be instant, in season, out of season, reprove, entreat, rebuke, in all patience and doctrine. For times will come when men will not be able to endure sound doctrine. Our Lady of Good Success, 17th century, and in the supreme need of the church, those who should have spoken in time will remain silent. Next point. The conciliar so-called saints. St. Teresa of Calcutta, St. Paul VI, St. John Paul II. Yeah, right, here. The conciliar saints and conciliar masses do not enjoy divine approval, and therefore God cannot lend credibility to them by true miracles. Next point. Forgetting our historical origins would cause us to lose our reasons for combat. Most of the priests and parishioners of the so-called resistance come from the original and authentic SSPX, founded by Archbishop Lefebvre, and we are continuing that work of rescuing the tradition of the Church. However, we can no longer collaborate with the neo-SSPX, which is a corruption of the original work. Next point, the Catholic faith can be corrupted not only by adherence to explicit errors expressed in words, but also by ambiguous or equivocal acts that contradict or corrupt this faith in practice, as would be the case with a practical agreement with the modernists, which by not taking into account the primacy of doctrine would lead to its neglect, to evil acts, and consequently, its corruption. Next point, we cannot condone the complicit silence of the neo-SSPX regarding the recent globalist, murderous, and eugenicist health measures. It is criminal for priests to abandon the faithful of tradition to their fate through their silence. Father Pellegriniani, General Superior of the neo-SSPX, erroneously stated that this issue is exclusively a medical matter, thereby denying that it is also a moral issue. That was December 11th, 2021. And then Pope Pius XII, in his speeches, addressed multiple medical problems precisely because they all had very serious moral implications. Implications, yes, thank you. All right, point 15. Anything else on that, Father?
No, I think it's clear.
Anybody else? Okay, all right. We're almost to the end here. Point 15, the problem of partial traditionalists. In many circles of the official church today, there is a movement seeking something more authentic in the practice of our religion. Many priests and parishioners are interested, for example, in the Tridentine Mass, which makes us very happy. However, it must be borne in mind that the problem of the current crisis in the Church is a much broader one and is not limited to the question of the Mass. The problem of the new Mass also has its historical roots in events that have caused other evils within the Church itself. The problem is much broader. There is also the problem of the new sacraments, the documents of the Council, the new legislation, etc., etc. Some think that the Second Vatican Council would be acceptable if only a few points were corrected. but they do not see the problem of the conciliar spirit that permeates all the conciliar documents, and that these very documents are also all part of a harmonious whole that cannot be separated. Archbishop Lefebvre believed that the innovative conciliar spirit cannot be separated from each other, cannot be separated from each and every one of the conciliar texts. So in other words, you can't save any part of the council because it's all soaked like a cake in poison. It is for this reason that we advise the faithful followers of tradition not to get their hopes up too high about those Catholics and even clergy who only want to return to the traditional Mass. It is not enough. Mass without doctrine and without awareness of the full extent of the problem is not enough. What we must do is return to the entirety of tradition. Otherwise, we can never be true traditionalists. It is clear that it is our prayerful intention that Catholics in the official church will gradually come to understand not only the problem of the new Mass, but also the full extent of the problem of the conciliar crisis. Without this, they would not be true traditionalists, and we would not be able to collaborate with them. In this sense, the works of Archbishop Lefebvre, Open Letter to Confused Catholics, and They Have Uncrowned Him, can be a tremendous help to them. So, any questions on this so far?
There's a quote from Archbishop Lefebvre, I forget the wording, but it's where he says something about the more he reads the documents of the council, the more he realizes that they are soaked with kind of what you said, the poison. But I forget where the quote was.
That's his talk, conference 1990. Okay. 1 year after the consecrations. Oh, no, it's 2 years after the consecrations, that talk. Okay. Point 16, sedevacantism and the sedevacantist spirit. On many occasions, Archbishop Lefebvre warned us that sedevacantism was not the position of the SSPX because it carried the danger of leading to schism over time. That is why he did not want us to have any kind of contact or collaboration with sedevacantists. We do not rule out the possibility that there may be periods of sede vacante in the church, which means empty chair, as happens after the death of popes. But it is very dangerous to claim that there have been no popes since the death of Pope Pius XII, as some claim, since this could call into question the apostolic succession itself. But apart from the issue of the Pope, there is also the problem of the sectarian spirit that is so common among many sedevacantists, which is an additional reason to avoid them. Intellectual voluntarism leads to overly simplistic and absolutist reasoning about the current problems of the Church. Judgments stimulated by an overly human zeal in people who have no theological studies. Nor does it help to disregard the judgments of good priests and even of Archbishop Lefebvre himself, that holy bishop whom divine providence sent us in these times of diabolical disorientation to show us the way. And for those who have doubts, it should be noted that this bishop was perhaps the most qualified clergyman to give a judgment on the problems facing the church today. Archbishop Lefebvre, he was Archbishop of Dakar, advisor to Pope Pius XII, apostolic delegate of Pope Pius XII for all of French-speaking Africa. He was Superior General of the Congregation of the Holy Ghost Fathers, which was the largest missionary order in the world. He's a doctor of theology and philosophy from the French seminary in Rome. He was a member of the Traditional Preparatory Commission for the council that was later rejected by the modernists, etc., etc. So in other words, a man of such high caliber and sanctity and good theology warned against sedevacantism. And we have to just stay in that position. Seventh, any questions on that point? Anything to add, Father?
No, I think it's clear. The question is the same question, the same that is there. That's the question. The sedevacantists are spirit sedevacantists is the people that want to judge all and don't have always the elements to judge, and they are very close for the other raisonnements of Bishop Lefebvre. And when I speak with the sedevacantists, they don't accept the arguments of the priest, and they don't have studies, and he say have judgment for all things, and each sedevacantist have a different theory for the solution of the Christ of the Church. Each sedevacantist has his theology, and are not the unity that Bishop Lefebvre gave to the priest of the society in other times. We are more, coherence in the priest of the true priest of the society. They are think the same thing. There is no theories very very close, and me say that, and you need to accept. There is always the problems with the sedevacantist. There is a very particular spirit. The sedevacantist. It's not only the question of the Pope. It's not only a question of...
Could it be summed up in, the error be summed up in is someone making a judgment that you don't have the right or the authority to have, because it's not just a personal opinion, but it affects what you do when it regards to saying the Mass and also teaching the faith and how you view the hierarchy.
Yes, sometimes I don't say that he never says something true, but it's a general position that none gives to the real solutions. Sometimes he says something is true, but the general spirit is very personal, very, it's my opinion, and I want to impose all others my opinion, but it's not very theologic. It's because many sedevacantists are not priests, but they are very, obstinate in his one point of view, and there is in the sedevacantists there are not unity. They are very divided, but they criticize many, and they criticize Bishop Lefebvre. And they say many times Bishop Lefebvre was sedevacantist. Like me, I know I was no Bishop Lefebvre. I live with him, and Bishop Lefebvre say me. I am is a testimony of testimony of
first-hand testimony.
Yes,
out of his mouth. You heard.
He
him.
say me. The Bishop Lefebvre say me. No. He say we must to be distant of the sedevacantist, and not collaborate with him, not with the priest, not with the faithful. You need to not have a relation with these people because it's the danger of schisma. Maybe not today. In some time, we have a good pope. Maybe they don't accept him because he say, the priest, the pope before you are not valid. The cardinals are not valid. The bishops are not valid, but you are not pope. And if God give us a good pope, they do. This is the danger of schisma. That is why Bishop Lefebvre are very prudent with the sedevacantists.
Okay.
When I was have discussion with some sedevacantists, they are very close. It's not possible to help them because they are very accessible close. It's not normal that. Yes. It's the end. We are
almost to the end. Here we go. 17. The problem of the doubtful sacraments of the Tuch line. Archbishop Lefebvre's position regarding the ordinations and sacraments originally coming from Bishop Tuch was always that we could not be sure of their validity and that therefore they had to be avoided. It is not permissible to receive doubtful sacraments. Yeah, very clear, very simple. That's Archbishop Lefebvre's position. And we hold to that, yes.
Where did the Bishop Tuch, where does it come from? Like, you call him the Tuch line. Like, how did that start up?
Oh, 'cause he was a real archbishop in Vietnam. He was at Vatican II. And apparently he was on the liberal side. He was very much for women participation in the liturgy, more active participation. He wasn't on the traditional side. So after his brother was murdered by the communists in Vietnam, some say that's when he started to do very strange things. And one of them was consecrating a non-Catholic as a bishop, which is just a huge breaking of the law of the church.
So was he consecrated a bishop himself in the traditional?
Yes. Before Vatican II, yeah.
So then he just went crazy.
That seems to be.
Can be not necessarily crazy, but not equilibrium. How do you say? Not have equilibrium.
Lacking balance in judgment. Lacking good judgment.
Yes, it's not the same. Huh? It's not necessarily crazy, but can be no equilibrium, mental equilibrium.
So then all the bishops that he consecrated, we called them the Tuch line bishops, just because he just randomly ordained bishops.
Yes. And among them were the Palma de Troya, I think it was 5 or 6.
It was 5.
5 priests he consecrated as bishops because of some apparition. And later they elected their own pope. That's called Palma de Troya. They have their own pope right now, reigning. So he really fostered a schismatic sect, a true schismatic sect, Palma de Troya.
Yes.
And that's when Archbishop Lefebvre at the consecrations, he said, what we're doing today has nothing to do with setting up a new church, a parallel church, like Palma de Troya. We are Catholic, but this is Operation Survival. Very different, right?
You can kind of say with Bishop Tuch, hopefully he was crazy, because if he wasn't crazy, he must have been a really bad guy.
Yes. Well, Father Pfeiffer knew too. He knew better than this. He knew this. All right, point 18. The new Pope Leo XIV. Unfortunately, this new Pope is an admirer of Pope Francis, a follower of Vatican II, and continues to celebrate the new Mass, etc. No significant changes in sight, and the crisis in the Church will continue. We must not entertain false hopes when there are no consistent reasons for doing so. God will save His Church when He Himself deems it appropriate. What God asks of us is to persevere in the battle, and He will one day give us victory. To pretend that we are the ones who are going to save the Church is an act of presumption. And I give you the quote of Our Lady at Fatima, only she, the Queen of the Holy Rosary, can save us. That was actually the words of Fatima. Only she can help us. Only she can help us. Okay, conclusion, number 19. Ready? Anything else?
No.
Conclusion. Where does the faith of the Church find refuge today? Without the Catholic faith, the Church cannot exist, and without the complete profession of the Catholic faith, neither can it. Even if it is possible that there may be Catholics who have an imperfect and incomplete profession of the faith, due to ignorance or weakness, it is nevertheless necessary that there always be at least some Catholics who profess the Catholic faith in its fullness and integrity. If there were even one truth of the faith, that no one professed anymore, then the Catholic Church would no longer be itself and would have ceased to exist. That is, it would no longer be indefectible. According to the promise of Jesus Christ, the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Matthew 16:18. The fathers of the Church, commenting on the time of Christ's passion, said that since Christ's apostles and disciples faltered in their faith during Christ's passion, it was then that the entire faith of the Church took refuge in the heart of Mary, who was the only one who preserved the complete profession of the faith. Stabat Mater. She stood. She had no doubts or shadows in her faith, unlike the other apostles and the first Christians during Christ's passion. Today we are not living the passion of Christ, but the passion of his church, and we are called to renew in ourselves fidelity to the faith in its fullness, following the example of Our Lady of Sorrows, without doubts or shadows. Virgo fidelis, ora pro nobis. Faithful Virgin, pray for us. The separation between the official church, now occupied by modernists, and true believers who profess the integrity of the faith of the church is only a temporary separation until Jesus Christ decides to rescue the official church, now kidnapped by its enemies. It is not a separation in a schismatic sense, but only a prudent one, and for a time. After witnessing the passion of the church, are we also going to witness her apparent death? Can the church, while remaining indefectible, at the same time undergo a death that is only apparent in the eyes of the world? Faced with the widespread indifference of the great mass of liberal Catholics regarding the primacy of the doctrinal combat, especially understood in its integrity, we continue to try to highlight what they want us to forget today so as not to displease the new conciliar church. Allied with this modern world, invaded by liberalism, modernism, tepidity, and false prudence, we only seek to remain in the holy faith, in line with Pope St. Pius X, all the anti-liberal popes, and Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. May our sorrowful Mother, who stood at the foot of the cross, keep us faithful and give us the grace to always defend and persevere in the integral Catholic faith. On this month of Our Lady of the Most Holy Rosary, we, the undersigned priests, propose the above text for the consideration of all those who love the true, one, holy, Catholic, and Apostolic Church. Father Hewko Ruiz, Father David Hewko. And that's the statement. Quite lengthy.
This is a text about in the next days we make the diffusion of the text that Father comment today. Is but is a text, the original. You want to add something, Father? No.
No,
Comments?
you got 19 great points. These are great.
It's to make the actuality of the situation of the church, of the tradition, but maybe there is other thing more, but I don't see. But there can be.
I think for now it says a lot.
It's quite extensive and it covers a lot of relevant topics, especially right now. There's a lot of Archbishop Lefebvre in there, so it shows it's not just people talking, it's relating to what Archbishop Lefebvre says, so I think it's quite good. Would we be getting, I know it's a lot, would we ever get like written copies to read?
Oh, yeah.
I was going to ask, can I get a copy of it?
Oh, yeah, this will be printed.
Because then you see
Yeah.
everything processes.
It's got Spanish, English, and Father's working on the French. That's a lot of work. There's a lot of hours and hours and prayer into this. So let's pray it helps strengthen the faithful, and who knows, fall in the hands of Pope Leo XIV and make him reconsider to come back to tradition, and maybe inspire one of the bishops of tradition to be more clear and more fearless and defend the doctrinal battle.
The battle, doctrinal, yes.
You never know.
You have questions?
I think it's quite good. Like I said, it would help to have a written copy, because then you can reread it and there's things you don't notice. But
You'll get that.
it seems quite good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yes.
But I heard from it sounds very sound, very stable. Everything solid.
Okay. Should we pray, Father?
Yes, we can pray. What he can say, what prayer of Our Lady?
Yes.
Subtum presidium, confugimus Santa Dei Genitrix, nostras applicationes de despicia si necessitatibus, sed a periculis contis libera nos semper, vivo gloriosa et benedicta. Cor Iesu sacratissimum, misericordia nobis, cor Maria Immaculatum, ora pro nobis. Sancte Pie Decime,
Ora pro nobis.
Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
Amen.